Hello. Welcome to Finsweet Live for a brand new day of content. Today we are in Build Day, and Build Day is going to be a new episode of Finsweet Live where we talk all about building cool things in Webflow. Sometimes we're going to get a little technical, talk JavaScript stuff. Sometimes we're going to be talking Webflow development stuff. But this is a bit of a break from our normal content of business and now Community Day. We wanted to get more inside Webflow, more educational in Webflow, and that's exactly what we're doing today. I'm joined with Finsweet CTO Alex Iglesias, and Alex is going to be walking us through Finsweet's JavaScript development tools, which is really valuable. We are really trying to grow our technical force at Finsweet, and we have a lot of tools that help us do that. So Alex will be starting with the very basics of how to get started with these tools, and probably all the way up until actually getting some code live from a code editor into your Webflow project. So Alex, welcome to Finsweet Live. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you. And I think that you did a really awesome presentation here, because the idea is I want today to present how we work day to day here in Finsweet, how we develop professional solutions. But I would like to start from scratch. So anybody here that's joining us today who would like to start playing around with some JavaScript on Webflow and is tired of messing up the code using the native Webflow code editor, it's great that you have that you're here with us, because I will try at least to show you everything going from scratch to even running some code on the Webflow side.
And this episode is valuable to anybody that wants to do more with JavaScript and Webflow. This is not for people who want to be full stack coders. It's not for people that don't want to touch code. It's people who just want to be a little bit more comfortable using code in Webflow and knowing that there's more tools and there's more environments out there than just using page settings or site settings to write your code. So let's say hi to the crowd first. We have a bunch of people here joining us. Josh Hartman, welcome. Early bird gets the worm. Absolutely. Josh is definitely one of the more technical minded people. I've been seeing a lot of cool stuff that Josh is working on. Hope you learned something cool here. Hello to Rohan, Mika Dixon. Awesome. I know you do some technical stuff too. Kai, how you doing? Demetrius, how are you? A new Webflow user, new in the development space. I really hope that we can teach you something new here. Jonathan, hello. Dale Jensen, Sean Duval, Jonathan Fors, hello. We have a great crew here. Penny, Scott Humphrey, Brandon. Yes.
Everyone is complaining how early is this one.
Yes, we have a new time slot. So we do 12 Eastern every single day, or every Tuesday and Thursday. And now we have a new time slot, hopefully to help people that are on the other side of the world. And if you hear some dogs barking in the background, which you probably can, I apologize for that. I am remote right now with family and friends, and there are some dogs in the back. But we're here at 9 a.m. Eastern. Alex, how are you feeling? Are you excited for this?
Yes, so much. And actually, this is going to be
Awesome.
super helpful for anybody joining our team. We can just show them this stream and hey, you can you can set up everything to start working with us. Just watch this stream and that's it. So
Yeah,
super
that's
excited.
nice. A little onboarding. That's great. Yeah, this is actually what we use at Finsweet. This is not content that we have created that we think you will like. This is what we're actually using to grow our technical forces at Finsweet. So it's not theoretical. It's live. We use this.
Yep.
Let's let's bring up a comment from Demetrius. One thing I'd like to learn at some point is how to push stuff into Webflow CMS through JavaScript and probably hide a private key. Probably Node stuff, but just saying. So we're not going to go this far into JavaScript and implementation today. However, as we do more build days and we hear more suggestions like this, we're going to do more content like this. So keep coming to build days with Alex and we'll hit something like this. I think a great topic. Thanks for that suggestion. Okay,
Nice.
great. Oh, Caleb, nice to see you. Great. Okay, so let's get into this. Alex is going to be leading the conversation here. He is our technical mind. I'm going to be here asking questions. So I'll be coming in as I'll call myself non-technical person, asking Alex, the technical person, how things work and why things work. So Alex, please go ahead, share your screen, and let's get started.
Nice. Cool. Can you see my screen? Okay, so first let me just make a quick summary of why are we creating solutions the way that we do instead of just doing it directly in Webflow. So probably everyone, if you ever try to code something in Webflow, you have a bunch of options. You have the option of putting some code in the global custom code settings. You have the options of putting that code in the page settings, or you can put it in an embed. And you probably, let's add just an embed here. And if you try to just write anything here, the first thing that you probably have noticed is that you don't have anything in here. Nothing is helping you write any code. This means that you don't have any linting, you don't have any IntelliSense. IntelliSense is when your code editor is suggesting you things that you could be adding to your code. You don't have a way of formatting your code. You don't have a way of knowing if there is any missing colon, any missing brackets, something that you could just be basically messing up in your code. So basically, this is the same as using a notebook without anything. You just go raw here, you go to the war. So when you try to create complex solutions, or even not complex solutions, any kind of solution, it's a little bit of pain in the ass trying to code directly here in Webflow. So that's why every time that we want to create any solution for Webflow, we use our own environment. And from our own tools that I will present now, we bring that code directly to Webflow in a seamless, I don't know how I'd say, but just automatically we have having to go and copy and paste the code inside the designer. So the entire stream, the entire conversation is going to be revolving around what we call the developer starter. And I don't know, Joe, if you can share this in the chat. Can you?
I just did.
So this is
Share it in the
okay.
chat.
Cool.
I'll pin it to the chat as well.
Yeah, don't be scared. This is GitHub, and this is basically a template that contains everything preset so you can start working with it. But I know that many people here don't even know what's GitHub. So we'll start with the basics. We'll start just trying to explaining what's GitHub and how you can start using it, and then go through this and also move on and try to write a little bit of code. But basically, for the ones who don't know GitHub at all, who don't know anything about Git, GitHub it's a platform that uses Git. So don't be confused between Git and GitHub. Git is I don't know how to say non-technical, but it would be like a system where you can have your code and you can add code while keeping a history of everything that has been changed. So you always can revert some changes, you can add some features, you can branch your development efforts in different paths, you can collaborate with other people, etc. This is Git. And GitHub is just a platform that's providing this to you. So in this case, we use internally GitHub for everything related to our code. any project that we have, we always start it in GitHub. If there's any new code that we want to, anything that we add or remove on the code base, we always have the entire history of what we did thanks to GitHub, and we can collaborate with many people in our team to work in the same solution. So in this case, we start from this template. The developer started. But before diving into trying to understand everything that's going on here, I would like to show you how you could start using this template right away. And for that, we will need two things. The first thing is a code editor. So we can open this, we can download this template and we can start using it to write some code. And the second thing, I would like to present what's called GitHub Desktop, because we are we're a no code community, so we love doing things no code. And I'm an advocate of GitHub Desktop because it simplifies a lot using GitHub. Um, if you have seen anything related to GitHub in the past, you probably have seen people going in a terminal like hacker mode and start writing some commands and things. Everything gets confusing if you're not a coder, right? But in this case, GitHub Desktop, it's going to be just a UI that we can use and click stuff around, and it's very easy to understand. So, Joe, I will ask you if you can also share both these desktop.github.com, which is a software that we'll use to download this template. And the second thing is the code editor that it's Visual Studio Code, which I'll dive into this in a second. But as a summary, this is the code editor of our preference for editing, well, for programming. And in this case, the URL, Joe, if you can share it, it's code.visualstudio.com. So I'm going to assume that everyone has already installed these two tools. So you just need to go here, you download it, and you install it like a regular software. If you use Mac, it's going to be the same. It's just going to prompt you to use Mac, to download from Mac. And same for Visual Studio Code. You just come to the URL, you can download this, and you can right away start using it. I would like to point out one thing, and that is that today we're focusing on local development. This means that everything it's going to be from my local machine to Webflow. So I'm going to be specifically working on my machine, on my computer. But there's a separate topic that maybe we could tackle in the future, which is cloud development tools. So this is things like Code Sandbox, Stackblitz, Gitpod. There are a bunch of development tools that live in the cloud that basically you can skip this entire step of downloading software for your computer. You just go to a website and you start using it right away. But I think that it's best if we keep this on a separate stream. For now, we'll focus on what we use in Finsweet internally. Any questions so far, Joe?
Nope, that is great. Keep going, please.
Cool, nice. The cool thing of using GitHub Desktop is that it pairs super well with GitHub. And basically, when you come here in the developer side or any repository, you can right away open it directly in your software. So if I take this repository and I come here to code, I can already open it in GitHub Desktop, and this is already going to process the repository. It's going to check it out to my machine, and I can already use it. But for now, oh, by the way, I forgot. You actually need a GitHub account if you want to follow what we're doing today. So again, you just need to go to github.com and you can create an account. It's free. But yeah. So let's start with GitHub Desktop. GitHub Desktop, it's just a GUI that it's called. GUI, I think it's pronounced, for doing a lot of actions that you would normally do by typing commands. You have here an entire UI that you can just start clicking around, and it helps. It's very simple to use. So in this case, we can already see that we have a repository open here. We could open new branches. I won't dive into what's this now, but basically we could be switching branches. We can fetch if there's any new code that somebody else committed. We could change different repositories if we were working on in different solutions, etc. But in this case, the only thing that I want to do is open this in Visual Studio Code. Again, GitHub Desktop and Visual Studio Code pairs automatically, so it's super easy. You just open the repository and you can already open it, and I'm already here with the code editor with everything ready, so I can just start already working. I would like to ask if there's any questions in the audience so far before I move on.
There is one question from Demetrius. Does anyone know if the template has auto refresh on save?
The template has auto. Yes, I think that you mean that when I'm coding, if I save my files, it auto refreshes the HTML page, the Webflow page that we're working on. Because in this case, it does refresh the file, but not the screen. And I'll get to that in a second, because I think it's going to be simpler if I just show it. But
Sure.
it's kind of halfway there. Okay, so let me just recap what I did. We already have GitHub Desktop. We already have Visual Studio Code. So right away, you can already pick any repository and open it in GitHub Desktop. And you can also then start coding by just opening the repository in Visual Studio Code. But right now, we have this developer started, and this repository, it's located in Finsweet, right? This is on our organization, but you don't want to work on this repository. Every time that you create a new solution, what you want to do, like you would be creating folders when you're organizing assets or doing whatever, you want to create a new repository. And that new repository, it's going to contain all the solutions for this specific project. So in this case, this is what we're going to do right now. I'm just going to be here, and you will see that there's a button that it's saying use this template. And this, when I click it, basically it's just going to clone this to create a new repository. And it's the exact same thing that it would be if we compare it with Webflow. It's the exact same thing like having a template in your team and cloning that template to start working, like client first. This is the equivalent of client first, but for coding. That's the exact same thing. We take the code, we have a template, we create a new project. So in this what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new project here, and I'll say how we can call this. Start the demo, for example. I'm just going to have this repository. We could add a description. This is for the stream. Yay. And we can decide to make it public or private. So in this case, I'll make it public. So anybody that wants to access it afterwards, you can do it. And I already have this button, create the new repository. GitHub, it's doing everything for me. It's just picking up the template. It's just creating a new project, and it's done. Everything here now, it's fresh. Any new code that we had that we add here, it's gonna have its own history. You have full control of what's going on here. So in this case, let's do the same thing that I did before. We can already come here and we can select code, and I want to open this with GitHub Desktop. So GitHub Desktop, it's gonna take care about cloning the repository for so it downloads it in your machine so you can start working with it. In this case, just leave everything on defaults. I have the repository URL. I have where I want this repository to live in my machine. So in this case, development started demo. That's perfect. I'll just clone it. We hit clone, and that's it. This is now living on our machine, and it's directly connected with the remote, with the cloud, with GitHub servers, so I can push the code in GitHub every time that I have something new. And same as I did before. Open it in Visual Studio Code. Let me close the previous one. Oh, actually, I'll try to fit this in the screen sharing. How is this looking? Good?
Looks great. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Okay. So that's it. Let me close the previous one. That's it. Hopefully, everyone, if somebody is following this, hopefully everyone has been able to download, clone the repository and just download it to the machine. But that's it. That's how new repository is looking now, and it's ready to code. And I think that before we start coding, we could do just a quick walkthrough of everything that you can find in here. So I'll just pull the README, but actually, I think it looks better in here. The README file in the template contains instructions for everything. So I will try to walk you through it, but still, I would recommend that you just give it a try. You just go from top to bottom, try to read everything, try to understand everything. And if you actually have any questions, you go ahead and ask them, because I'll be happy to answer it. But yeah, let's just go through everything that you can find here. So the first section is already telling you there are a bunch of included tools in this repository that you can use. I think it would be cool to show actually the tools that we use. So, well, the setup is TypeScript, Prettier, ESlint with Playwright, ESbuild, chain sets, and Finsweet TypeScript utils. And okay, now a lot of information. Let's let's try to see everything that's going on here. Actually, before we need to do one single first step, which is installing everything like this. So let's just follow this along, because we now have all the tools here, but first we need to install some packages because it contains some npm packages and we want to have them downloaded in the project. So what I want you, if you're following us, what you to do is go to view, go to, oops, not here. How do I open the terminal? Here. Open the terminal, and the terminal, this is already located in the folder that we're working on, and we just have to add 2 commands. Now this is getting a little bit codey, but don't worry, it's super simple. The first command, if you don't have pnpm installed, it's by just running this. So you can already come here, you can copy it. You can copy it and you can just paste it here. And what's this gonna have? What it's gonna do? It's going to install pnpm. Pnpm is just, I think that it's better to have a separate stream discussing this, but pnpm is just a package manager for npm. And npm is a package manager for all the packages that we use. So, well, just keep in mind that npm, it's the package manager that contains all the packages that we need with the tools that we use for development. So in this case, we already had pnpm, so that's fine. And the second thing that we need to do is install everything. So in this case, I'll just do pnpm install like this, and it's going to install all the dependencies that we have in this project. These dependencies include everything that I showed you before, which is for TypeScript, for Prettier, for ESlint, for Playwright, for ESbuild, chainset, and TypeScript TS utils. And I'll show you now in a second. Don't worry, don't freak out. It's I know that this sounds scary, but it's fine. Has it finished? Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's walk through everything that we have. We have a bunch of folders here, and every folder has a purpose. The one that's gonna contain all the code that we write, it's the folder that it's called source. The name is already saying it. Source, it's for the source of the code. So in here, let's just open the first one. And we have already a super small demo of a little bit of JavaScript, just saying that when Webflow is ready, when Webflow has finished loading, just greet the user for John Doe, which is the name. with the function, which basically just console logging it. Simple code. We already have this code, and with this code, I can show you now everything related to these tools, to the tools that we use for working. I can start with TypeScript. The TypeScript perhaps is the most advanced one. What do you say, Joe? Should I pitch TypeScript? I think I did on a previous stream, actually.
I think we need to hit TypeScript at some point. I don't know if you
Yeah.
should do that before the tools or after, but I think we need to explain what TypeScript
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Well, TypeScript, if you can understand, for somebody who doesn't know at all what's TypeScript, you can understand TypeScript as just JavaScript with some sprinkled features on top of it that it helps you write better code. Let's just summarize it with that. Any line of JavaScript that you write, it's valid TypeScript. So anything that you write that you would normally do when writing JavaScript, you can always put it in a TypeScript file and it's going to work completely. No issues at all. TypeScript is just going to add a little bit more functionalities on top of your code of what you're writing, so you can ensure that a little bit more safety on what you're writing. But in this case, as you can see, we actually don't have anything related to TypeScript. Everything that you're seeing here, it's JavaScript. So that's it. But if we go to create, for example,
Can I ask a question about that?
Yep.
Okay, question. Would you say that TypeScript is an additional set of rules that help you better write JavaScript? An additional
Yeah.
set of rules, as in, yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wouldn't say rules specifically, but just let's say just helpers, some tools, some additional bits of code that you can put that,
Mm.
well, actually, let me rephrase this. TypeScript allows you to put some rules in your code so you can ensure that your code is following those rules. And I was actually going to show an example with this grid user function. So let me just read again what's going on here. When Webflow is ready, we have a name variable that's just saying that there's a name that's called John Doe, and then we're calling a function that's going to greet the user. But if we check this function, look what's happening here. If you're a JavaScript developer, you would probably always see the code like this. Okay, the code, you basically have a function, you define a function argument, and then this argument you use it inside the function. But in the case of TypeScript, not only we can do this, we can also put a rule on top of it and say, okay, whatever parameter you pass as the name, I want always this name to be a string. This cannot be a number. This cannot be a Boolean. This cannot be an object. This cannot be a function. It has to be a string. And this actually, as you can see, it allows me to put this rule on top of my JavaScript code to make sure that this code is safe. Because now, if I come here with this function, if I say instead of a name, I want to say, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, TypeScript is going to complain. It's going to tell me, hey, this is not supposed to be here because you define a rule that it's saying you can only pass a string and you're now passing a number. It's already telling me here. This number, it's not supposed to be here. Just remove it. Please change it. Could be anything. Could be passing true. Could be passing another function. Could be passing an object, anything. Unless it's a string, like name. Oops. Unless it's a string, TypeScript is going to complain. So this is the first thing that we use internally. We use TypeScript to make sure that everything that we write, it's safe, that we call it's safety. It's fully safe. Nothing can go in without an expected format, without an unexpected type. that could potentially break our code. So that's the first thing. And I think that we
And
can move on to the next one unless you have questions.
well, we have a nice question from the community from Caleb. Caleb says, I'm still in the process of learning vanilla JavaScript, 75% through the Udemy course. At what
If you finish that course, I think that you will already have some pain points with JavaScript that perhaps TypeScript is going to help you solve. I encourage everyone that has just minimum experience with JavaScript to already start playing around with TypeScript. And the reason is because you actually learn a lot of JavaScript when you use TypeScript. And let me explain this because it makes sense. In JavaScript, the JavaScript is a dynamically typed language, which means that you basically can write anything, and the language is not going to complain until when you run the code, it finds something, a bug, and it breaks, right? But while you're writing the code, you can write anything, Nobody's going to complain. The thing is that most of the times when you're writing JavaScript itself, you don't even know what you're dealing with. So imagine that, for example, this same function in here. Imagine that this Greek user, it's a function that you wrote a long time ago. You don't remember how it works, and you just go ahead and in your code you pass something that it's not a string. You pass a function. You pass an object, and this probably it's gonna break. We don't know it because we don't remember about this function. When you write JavaScript, this is possible. You can do it. But when you write TypeScript, you know at all times what are you dealing with. You know if an element is from a specific type. So if an element it's an input, you know that that element has a bunch of methods. You know if a variable is a number of a string or a boolean, and you know that with that variable you can do a bunch of actions or not. You know, you start learning about the internals of JavaScript thanks to TypeScript because it's telling you constantly, hey, did you know that this that you're using, it's this specific thing. It's basically having like a mentor on your side telling you exactly all the times what are you working with. So I encourage you to try TypeScript once you have built something in JavaScript. You start feeling a little bit confident about writing your own solutions, and then just go ahead and try it. And for recommended courses, I cannot tell. Maybe we could gather something, Joe, and present it on another stream. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I just shared the recommended JavaScript course on Udemy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting with JavaScript, if you want to learn JavaScript, this is Alex's recommended course. Rohan, if you're listening, we need to set up an affiliate link for that. We have shared that course like 100 times. We must have over 100 signups for that. But
Yeah.
that's in there. Definitely start there. And yes, we will follow up maybe the next time Alex comes on with a TypeScript related course.
Yeah. Nice.
And
Okay.
let
Cool.
me, I'd like
Go ahead.
to ask one more question, try to further abstract this concept of TypeScript. Would you
Yes.
say that this is a more specific way to communicate with your code? So
Yes.
whatever's in your head and you're trying to do with code, TypeScript allows you to be a better communicator and more specific in what you are trying to do.
Yes. And you say it
Cool.
perfectly. I think that I cannot add anything else there. It's just
I
basically
just
you're
no
telling the
coded it.
code. Yeah. You're telling your code how do you want that code to be. Like, hey, I want this output to be like that, and I won't accept anything else that it's not that. So you know that when you're writing that code, the only way that you can achieve it is by following the rules that you set up with the typings in TypeScript. So yeah, definitely, it helps you a lot organizing your code. Shall I move on?
Yes, I think so. And if anybody has more questions about TypeScript, just ask them in the chat. We'll get to that towards the later in the episode. But yes, let's continue here.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I will focus on two more, and then I think that we can jump into putting some code in a Webflow project so people can like, come on, show us something already. I will do it. So let me just talk about Prettier. Prettier is actually a lifesaver when you're working with big projects, and specifically if you're working with, if you're collaborating with a team, because Prettier basically it's gonna format your code. Prettier takes a bunch of rules where you say, hey, I want my code to be this specific format. I want the lines to not be longer than 80 characters. I want the indentation of the code to be two spaces. I want every line to be closed with a semicolon. Like, you can put all the rules that you want, and Prettier, it's just going to do it for you. So let me show you. For example, I come here and I mess up my code a little bit like this. I'm just writing. Somebody who's really dirty coding just comes and writes this. The moment that I save my code, it's just gonna put it perfectly for me, following the rules that I already defined. So this means that anybody who's collaborating on this project, once they save the project is gonna look exactly the same for everyone. Nobody can come here and put a line there when somebody who would be coding maybe put it to just with one space and somebody with two spaces, or somebody likes to, I don't know, put a line break. I don't know why would they want to do it, but you know, people tend to like different things. But with Prettier, you can establish, hey, I want this code base to always follow these rules, and it's gonna do it already every single time. Now let me point out that if you want to have automatic formatting on save, you have to do one action. And I think that we can show it so everyone can just have the same setup. Actually, you need to do two actions, but it's super simple. The first one is that you have to have installed an extension. VS Code accepts installing extensions. So in this case, you just need to come here on the left menu to extensions, and you want to search for Prettier, and there's an extension that's called Prettier. You just install it. That's it. This is already going to show you errors like this. If you can see the errors that it's these squiggly lines that it's showing me, this is because the extension is already complaining, hey, you're not writing the code properly. This is not looking good. The extension already takes care of it. But if you want to format your code every single time that you save the file, because now if I hit Control S to save my file, automatically it's gonna format it for me. So actually, my workflow, it's basically I keep writing and I hit Control Save like every 5 seconds because I just want my code to be cool, to look good. So you need to do one extra step, and it's super simple. You just need to open the command palette. Here you go to View, you open the command palette, or you can just do Control Shift P if you want this, and just go to Settings. Here you will see open user settings. You open the settings, and I think that it's an option that it's called format on save. Format and save. You just check this, and that's it. You're good to go. Once you have this, your code, it's never gonna look bad. It's always gonna look pretty. Let's call it, that's the name for Prettier. So yeah, this is super cool. I think that this is one of the more the things that I miss most when I'm working here. Once you're used to Prettier, this is like, I cannot write anything without being mad. Like, come on, I write something and I just want it to look good. I don't want me to be putting 2 lines of indentation myself manually here. It's just a pain in the ass. Come on, just do it for me. So Prettier,
And
it's already doing it.
it's easier to read.
Yes,
It's
definitely.
like you talked a lot about teamwork and making sure that the team has the same kind of formatting, but when you look at formatted code versus not formatted code, it's just easier to look at. It's easier to spot mistakes. It's
Yes.
easier to understand what's going on. So if you're starting to write code, I think it's incredibly important that it is pretty. So yeah,
Yep.
I love this step.
Nice. Yep, definitely. Okay, cool. And let me quickly go through another thing that we have here, which is ESLint. ESLint would be the equivalent of, so TypeScript, it's having somebody that's telling you, hey, you're passing wrong types on your code. So you're passing here a number when it should be a string. This is not correct. Basically, it's checking for the types of your code. But not only we want to make sure that our code has the correct types, also we want to make sure that everyone is following the best practices when writing the code. This means not using old syntax, not over engineering something that could be done in a simpler way, not actually I'm forgetting about the rules that we have, but basically it just enforcing you to write, to have best practices. And I can show you now. Actually, ESLint, again, you need an extra step, which is installing an extension. And by the way, everything that I'm saying about installing extensions, it's already, it's also here in the documentation, so you won't miss it. Don't worry. But basically, once we install the extension that it's called ESLint, you come here, you add the extension, and that's it. The template that we are presenting you already has our own rules. So if you check the configuration for ESLint, you will see that it extends Finsweet. This is basically saying here, please use the rules from Finsweet. And basically, this is gonna um, shout at me when I'm doing things that I should not be doing. And I can show you an example. For example, using bars. This, I'm getting an error because var is a null variable type that should 99% of the time you should not be using it in JavaScript. We know it, so we have a rule in place that we're basically telling everyone in our team, don't use var, please. Just use const or let. So ESLint is already shouting at me because it detected, hey, you're using var, please use let or const instead. And this is because we added a rule for that. I can show you another example. It could be, for example, imagine that we have a count and I want to increment the count in a way that it's not the best way. How do I put it? It's not the safest way to do. So instead, we have a rule here that it's warning, hey, instead of using the unary operator, please go ahead and just do it like that. And this is already not complaining anymore. But again, we have another rule here that it's saying, hey, if you're using let, because let is supposed to be a variable that should be changing. Um, Actually, no, this is complaining me because I'd never used it. So you can see it's just complaining about stuff. It's just telling me, hey, this variable is not being used. Why the hell are you even implementing this variable? If I console log this now it's gonna stop shouting me, but now it's gonna shout me here because we have a rule that we don't want any console lags in our code. So you can see that basically just by having somebody at your side just shouting at you, telling you, hey, don't do this, then you should not be doing this. So this is ESLint.
And so if somebody's using the developer starter project, this is essentially you, Alex, shouting at the person to not do something
Kind of,
because
yeah.
you wrote these rules. Okay. So that's great.
Kind of,
This
yeah.
is really cool that you get to use this development starter project. And when you do things in your code that is not recommended by Finsweet, it will tell you that with this development starter package. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I like that. And that is that accurate, Alex?
Yeah. Yes.
Great. Okay. I love it.
Nice. Okay. How about we put some code on Webflow? Shall we do it?
Yeah, let's
Do we
absolutely
have
do
any,
that. Yes.
do we have any questions from the crowd?
I don't think so. If anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. We really want to answer your questions, but there's nothing right now. So let's continue.
Okay. Um, okay, cool. Actually, I need to do just explain one last thing about the tools that we use, and I think that we can skip the rest for another stream because it's pretty late already. But ESbuild, ESbuild is one important one because ESbuild is a compiler. ESbuild basically it's going to take all your files that you have in JavaScript. It's gonna strip all the TypeScript from it because TypeScript you cannot run it on the browser. You need to remove these extra rules that you added on top of your JavaScript code. So ESbuild it's gonna strip the TypeScript. It's going to take your code and it's going to compile it. It's going to minify it so it's prepared to be shipped to the browser. And in this case, we have two different commands that you can use with ESbuild. And that's why I have this terminal open here. Because actually let's read a little bit here. We installed everything. We are reaching the section of building the code. We want to take everything that we wrote. We want to build everything, compile everything, and ship it to the browser. So we need to build it. We have two separate ways of doing it. On the development mode or on production mode, which would be just building. And let me just start with the build mode, the production mode. If I come to the terminal and let me refresh again how you can open the terminal, you can just go to View, Open Terminal, or you have these, what's it called, a shortcut. Actually, there's also the terminal that you can also put here, New Terminal. And in here, you want to run the command for building, that it's pm build. So when I run this pm build, what now just happened, if you saw it, it just created this new folder here that it's called dist. And this folder contains this really ugly code, but it's basically my code that has been compiled and prepared to be shipped to the browser. So everything is minified, all the dependencies has been bundled together in a single file that I can load on the page, etc. So this code, it's really ugly. You don't want to be reading this code, but you want to ship this code to the browser once you're loading this. So this is what ESbuild does. But for now, let's focus on development mode because we want to develop and we want to do, we want to ship fast the code to the browser to test it. Because now, if I have this, I would have to go and host this. I would have to then load this on the page, etc. We can talk about this later on another stream, perhaps, but for now, we want to focus on development. And development, there's this other command that is pm dev. And pm dev, let me run it. It's going to spin up a server on localhost. And if I open this, you can see here that it's telling me this is being served at localhost 3000. So if I open this, you can see my files being here in localhost. Let me zoom in. Because it's development mode, the code it's not compiled. The code it's exactly as I had it. It even tells me this is from index file. This is from the grid file. This is from a pm module, etc. So I can just pick this and I can put it in my Webflow project, and it's going to be in sync with whatever I write here. And let me just make a quick demo. I can pick John Doe here and I'll just put Joe Krug like this. And I already saved it. And if I refresh this page, I already have this in place. So every single time that I save my files here, my ESbuild is going to take care of updating this index.js file that I have in localhost. So it's always up to date with whatever I have in the code. So this means that now I can pick this URL. Actually, let's just follow the documentation. There's a section that it's already saying serving the files in development mode. And you already have the script ready. So let's just copy this. And it's asking me to replace the file path. We know that this is an index.js file. So I'll just come here to my Webflow project and I'll put it here in the head like that. And this is index. And that's it. No need to do anything else. You can just publish and we can try it out. Let's wait until it's published.
That's so cool. I know a lot of people have asked about how do I host JavaScript files in Webflow? How do I work in a development environment? So this is what we're looking at right here. Being able to work in a development environment, have this code locally on your computer, and then actually push it to your developing Webflow project, which is awesome.
Yep. So you can see here my code that it was console logging a grid. It's already saying hello to Joe. That's nice. And imagine that we change the code. I just come here and I say Alex Iglesias. Once I save the code, let me just do it like this so you can see that I'm saving. So once I save my code, I can just refresh my page and my code already has the everything updated. No need to publish again, because one thing that you spend a lot of time when working with the editor here in Webflow is that every single time that you change something, you need to publish the page. So you come here, you change the script, you publish the page, you wait until it's published, and then you refresh the page. But in this case, you don't need to do it. You just put anything else here. Let's just say hi to Rohan. And that's it, working. Nothing else. So super fast. And this allows us to work seamlessly every single time that we just need to tweak something. Plug and play, you change something, you save it, and you can already check it on the page. No need to do anything else. The only thing that was missing, and I think that was a question from Danny, I think it was, he was asking if the page actually refreshes itself every time that I save. It's not the case, but maybe we could try to build an extension or something that would allow us to do it. Not the case right now, but not impossible. So I would say that perhaps in the future we can do it.
Nice. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have a question from Faraday Boxman. So GitHub is for storing the local code to a cloud so Webflow can always get into the code.
Yes and no. So half of it was actually, it depends. So yes and yes on sometimes. So let me just explain. So in GitHub, yes, you can store the code. Every single thing that you want to push to GitHub, it's gonna stay there forever. You have an entire history of every single code addition or removal that you did, and I can show you now. We can show it. And Webflow always getting into the code, you can do it under special circumstances. But let me actually, I think that we can do it in 5 minutes. Yes, let's do it, because I think that this will clear a lot of questions. First, let me just commit this code. Let's say hi again to Joe. I just say, hey, Joe Krug here. This is working. I'm happy with my code. I'm ready to push that code to GitHub. So in this case, what I'm going to do here in GitHub Desktop, I have an entire UI that is allowing me to make a commit. A commit, it's basically just me saying, hey, GitHub, please store this new piece of code. I did these additions or these removals, whatever. I want you to store this. So I'm just gonna pick the files that I want to commit. In this case, it's the index. And you can see that it's cool because it's already showing me, hey, you changed John Doe for Joe Krug. Is that what you wanted to do? Yes. Okay, we're fine. So in this case, I'm going to put a commit message. Updated the grid to say hi to Joe. So now in my history, I will have this message saying that I did this specific action of updating my code to say hi to Joe. And we can just commit it. So I'll commit it. And now I have to push it because Git lives both in your desktop, in your machine, and in the server. You can have code that it's committed, but it's not pushed to the server because your machine is already having the commit history, but you want to synchronize with GitHub. So in this case, what I'll do is now here, and I'm going to push it. I can push it from here, or I can push it from here. So I'll just push. And now let's just see the repository here. And if I refresh, see what happened. We have 2 commits here. And we can check the history. And we know that at some point, we updated the code to say hi to Joe. I can even open this and I can see exactly what changed. I know that I updated the code to say hi to Joe. So that's cool. This is something very important, especially when you're building something complex. You need to make sure that you have a history of everything that you did. And if you fuck up at some point, you can always go back. You can always restore something previous. It would be basically like backups in Webflow, but quite better. Yeah, okay. So now we have the code in GitHub. We have pushed our code. And let me address the second part of the question that was about if Webflow can read the code from GitHub. It can read the code directly from GitHub when the repository is public. Because in this case, this code base is public. I decided it to be public. But sometimes it's not going to be public. It's going to be for a client. It's going to be for a product. It's going to be for something that you don't want people to be picking inside your code base. So in that case, you're going to make the repository private. And for that case, you cannot point directly Webflow to a CDN with GitHub because GitHub is private. So you need another way to publish that code. And I was about to leave publishing the code to another stream, but I think that we can do the simplest version, which is publishing from a public repository. Because from a public repository, it's very simple because everything is already public. Okay. One thing that you could do, but I recommend that you don't do, it's taking any file. So you in here in the repository, you can pick any file. Let's just say the README file. And you can get a URL that points directly to this file. You can do it. And you will see that the URL is basically raw, the GitHub, blah, 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 with the file. But this is not meant for production. This is not meant for shipping, for loading these files on a high traffic page. This is just meant for you to be able to check out the files. When you want to load something on a page, you want it to be optimized to be able to be loaded super fast and so many times. And for that, you want a CDN. CDN is basically just a layer that caches your files, that serves everything close to the user, so everything loads fast. And in our case, we use JS Deliver. Perhaps you could share also this to the chat, Joe, But JS Deliver, it's a CDN that allows to hook both directly to GitHub and to npm. npm, it's the solution that we use for publishing private code. And I think that I won't dive into this because it's a little bit more, I need like 30 minutes more to dive into this. But just be aware that the way that we publish private code, we first create a package that we publish it on npm, and then once it's on npm, then we can use the CDN, the JS Deliver, to load it in Webflow. So let's just focus on GitHub. I'm just going to follow the instructions here. It's already saying me, pick this URL, put the user, put the repository, put the version, and put the file name. So it's already telling me everything. And we can do it together if you want to. So imagine that, actually I need to do one thing. Imagine that we have the code prepared already for shipping. I want to put it already in my website for production, not for development. I can build my code. So I would run the build command, npm build. Now we know that this file, it's already prepared. So if you check, it's already contain Joe Krug because it's already prepared with my code. And I want to put this file on GitHub. I need to do one step that you should not be doing, because the way that we publish everything, it's not through GitHub, it's through npm. So this folder, it's actually not being committed to GitHub. It's a little bit tough to explain, but I'll just remove this for a second to make sure that we can commit this, and I'll commit it. So I'll just say like this. So the entire this folder now can be put in GitHub, because previously we have a rule that doesn't go in GitHub, and I'll explain why. Don't worry. But for now, just trust me. We'll just put this on GitHub, and now where is it? Here. And now we have this file that contains my production code. Everything is ready to be shipped if I wanted to. Remember, this is just for a public repository, and this is not usually what we do usually in Finsweet. We usually follow a different approach because most of our code bases are private. So I'll tackle that in another time. But for now, yeah, just this. So we have this code, and we want to serve it through JS Deliver. So let's just follow whatever it's telling us here. I'll just come here in the Webflow project, and I'll just comment out this because this is for development. And I'll put, oops. I'll put the proposed URL from JS Deliver. But we need to update a bunch of things. This is saying me CDN JS Deliver from GitHub. The user, it's Finsweet. Let's just check it out here. Finsweet. The repository, and sorry if it's a little bit small, but the repository, it's starter demo. So I'll just pick this. I'll put it here, repo. I won't put a version because that's for another time. But in GitHub, you can version everything, and that's the power actually of the CDNs, that you can version your code. But I won't dive into this now. And then I will put the file name, which in this case is dist index.js. So I know that this is the this folder, index.js. And that's it. Now, when I publish this, now this is prepared for production. This is being served through a CDN. It can be loaded as many times as you want. And every time that you push your code to GitHub, kind of it's going to be updated with the latest code. And I say kind of, it's because we're not versioning. This is just caching. I don't want to confuse people. Just think that this is loading the code from GitHub, And for now, I think that's enough information, because if not, I'll just confuse the hell of everyone. So I think that for now, they should solve a bunch of questions from people.
And question. So, from my understanding, we use this solution, JS Deliver, to serve our attributes scripts. Every script that you use
Yes.
for attributes, it's coming from JS Deliver. We use this for client work. We serve client scripts on JS Deliver. So this is a very powerful solution that's used all throughout the company.
Yep. And actually, pointing out again, we don't serve directly from GitHub. The reason is because our repository is private, but also we version our code. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more complex. Not that much, but still, I think that it's too much information for today. Um, but yes, we have our code base. We send the private code to npm, which I have not showed here. So don't worry, I'll show it in another time. And from npm, we serve it using JS Deliver. And the the benefits of this is we can, as I said, we version our solutions. So we know, for example, that when I create a new solution for CMS Combine, imagine that CMS Combine, the current version is 1.5.2, whatever. And I put an addition, something new. And that addition, that would convert the code to 1.6.0, whatever. I won't explain about versioning system, semantic versioning now, but it will just put another version of the code. If something went wrong, if somebody complains, hey, my website broke, something happened, and everything is fucked up now, we can pick the previous version and republish it again. So we know that everything has been reverted to any previous version. That's why we not only because we have the private repository, but also we strongly version everything that we ship. So always we can rely on loading a different version if something went wrong. But yeah, I think that we can do discussions about versioning and publishing to npm and further going through the template, because I missed a bunch of stuff for the CI/CD pipelines. There's still a bunch of things to discuss, but yeah, we're kind of halfway through the entire workflow that we follow when building both client and product solutions here in Finsweet.
A nice question from Javier. If JavaScript is loaded in the user's machine, what kind of code is private? So we talked about having public code versus private code. Can you give some examples of what the difference of that would be?
So let me just put again here about the attributes. The code base for attributes, the original code base, it's private. The same as here, as you can just access these github.com/finsweet/starter demo, and you can just dive into every single file like this. You can see exactly the code that we wrote. In the case of a private repo, you cannot do it. But obviously, you're shipping that code to the client, to the user. But that code, it's not going to look like this. That code, it's going to look like this. So you can come here now and try to understand what the hell is going with CMS Combine, and you probably won't get it, because the code, it's compiled, it's prepared for production, and you cannot read the original version of the code that has every single line with the comments, with proper variable names, with explaining everything that is going on. Usually that's not an issue at all. I mean, we don't protect a code base because we don't want people to see the code. We usually protect the code bases more for working, being able to work freely without anybody questioning what you're doing, or doing requests or picking into something and complaining about it. It's more about it and about this, and not about the fact that you actually want that code to be hidden. Because I mean, I could kind of read this if I wanted to. I could format this code and I could try to guess everything that's going on. This is not holding me back from understanding it. It's just making my life harder. But it's not holding me back on doing it. It's a bunch of things. It's not only about protecting the code base from externalized, but also for convenience, and because you don't want people to just be picking on what you're working on. But that's mainly it. Anything that you ship on the browser, anything, it's accessible by the user. That's why always you will hear things like, don't put API keys in your JavaScript code, because it doesn't matter if the JavaScript code looks like this. Somebody with experience can read your code anyways. So if there's an API key here, I can pick it. So that's why things that should be private should never be on the browser, should be on the server. But that's a separate topic. That's a separate discussion. Just be aware that anything that you ship to the browser, it's accessible by anyone.
Let's bring up two comments about different tooling. We have Baum Agency saying that, what they say, we prefer to commit directly in VS Code instead of GitHub Desktop. And they later say, less memory is used by the computer, only one software open instead of two. We run our Webflow site in Docker and Gridsome, which is Vue.js, and publish them to Netlify. So
Yep.
just a little bit of a different workflow.
Yep. So GitHub Desktop, I showed it because it's super no code friendly. You have this entire UI that it's just telling you exactly what you need to do, no commands at all. From VS Code, there's actually something similar that it's here on the left that it's called source control. Kind of, you can do the same. It's not as a cool UI like this, but you can kind of do the same. So yes, if you want to skip having an entire different application, you can do it directly from VS Code. And they shipping the code to Netlify, just a different way of hosting the code to a CDN. So it's just kind of the same, but done a different way.
I know me personally, as a less technical person, I would prefer the GitHub desktop version.
Yeah,
And
no.
I'm sure that most coders would not, but I don't know. There's something nice about a beautiful UI that just takes a little bit of the confusion out, even if it's tiny. But nice. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate that tooling change. Let's bring up a question from from Magica Nexus, which looks like Baum already answered, but I'll bring it up anyway. Can it work with other versioning tools such as GitLab or Azure or other?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
As I
Great.
said, GitHub it's just a platform that manages that runs Git. Git is the underlying technology that allows you to have a code history, to version your code, to do everything. GitLab, Azure, AWS Code Commit, all these platforms are just a platform that allows you to work with Git. That's it.
Nice. Very, very cool and clear.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we're going to end the show with a really nice last question. And I think this will be good advice for
Nice.
people to go off with as they continue to learn. So David VVD says, "Hey Alex and Joe, if you think back to when you started to learn coding, would you do anything different or give yourself any tips?" Alex, do you want to start this one or you want me to start this one?
I would like you to start this one.
Okay, good. Well, let's see. Looking back on learning how to code, first, a disclaimer: I do not write code. I know enough about code to have a conversation with Alex, about creating tools, about helping the community, just enough to understand what's possible with code, but I do not write code. What's really valuable for me is that I'm able to speak about it at some level, right? I'm not like looking at Alex's code and giving him any advice on the code, but I'm saying, hey, let's think about this kind of solution or this kind of solution because I know that it's possible. So something I did early on was asked a lot of questions to the person that was writing code for me. We had somebody at Finsweet, the first JavaScript developer. His name was Yese, and he was a rock star for us at that time because I knew nothing. And he was helping implement code for us. And every time he did this, I asked him to explain what was going on. Comment every single line for me as if I know nothing because I know nothing. And he would do this. And over time, I would slowly start to understand okay, this is how variables work with functions, and this is how you call functions, and this is how you just the basics. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask. And that includes in these build day streams, that includes working with somebody externally. Just ask how to do it. Ask to put those comments in there. And if I could change one thing going back, I would look for Alex sooner. That would be my one mistake, that it took me a little too long to go out and
Thank you, Joe.
find Alex. So I would change that.
I'm flattered. Thank you. um, okay. I, I would not change anything that I did. I mean, I'm happy with the path that I took. So it's not. I don't want to sound cocky or anything like that. I just think that I follow the path that me personally helped me. And the tip that I would tell you, it's basically don't fall into tutorial hell, that it's called. It's just something terminology that I love. It's just basically when you start watching a lot of tutorials, you're following everything, but then you don't feel confident enough to build something without a tutorial. You know, when somebody's telling you how to do things, it's very easy. You're just following instructions. But at the moment that I tell you, hey, can you please build this, and now you feel scared about it. And there's a lot of people who, because of this fear, they just stick with tutorials, and they never get out of it. They never do this extra step. So I would recommend that as soon as you know how to write a console log, as soon as you know how to write the minimum, the most basic JavaScript, go ahead and try to do something without a tutorial on your side, without a guide. Just try to build something. If you just know about console logging, that's fine. Just try to console log the days of the week. Try to console log a few mathematical operations. I don't know. Just start small, but always try to do stuff on your own. Because the moment that you don't have anybody telling you what you have to do, it's the moment that you really learn. Because it's, oh, I need to do this and I don't know how to do it. And now you need to look it up. Now you need to solve a challenge and you need to do something about it. And that's what you're really learning. And I actually am happy that I did that. I just was super motivated because I was like, oh, I can just do this on a website. That's super cool. So I already was kind of motivated on trying to do things by myself. That's why I'm saying that I would not do anything different. But I would recommend that you do the same. Like if you learn a little bit, just go ahead and try to implement something. If it's something that actually helps you, even better. If there's something that you needed to solve, not something that you're just making up, like there's actually you need to calculate what the amount of money that you owe your brother-in-law. I don't know, whatever it's gonna help you in your life, just go ahead and try to do it, because then you're just learning by doing, and it's super powerful.
I love that advice, and I think it applies to so many different topics.
Yes.
Kai comes in and says that this is also useful for 3D. I think that exact same advice is really relevant for learning Webflow. You can watch all the
Mhm.
Webflow tutorials that you want, but until you actually have a real project that you're not following from somebody else and you're making those decisions yourself, it gets you to that next level. So if you're learning JavaScript, take this advice from Alex and also look at how you learned Webflow as a platform. What really worked for you? What was that step in Webflow that made you go, okay, I'm taking it to the next level? These same types of topics will apply to learning JavaScript. Really nice. Okay,
Nice.
so this is now the end of the episode. Thank you everybody for being here. We averaged a really nice 50 to 60 people the entire stream. That's awesome, especially for a brand new day of streaming and a new
Nice.
time of streaming with very little advertising. So thank you all for coming. Really, really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. That's going to tell us that we should do more of this stuff. Tell us that you like it. Tweet at us. Tweet at Alex, at Finsweet, at me, anything. Just say, hey, this was really helpful. Would love more content like this. Or suggest other content because we're going to be doing build day every single week. I would expect Alex to be on build day at least twice per month. So we have a lot more of this. So tell us what you want to learn and we are going to learn it. But this is a really good starting point. Alex, how are you feeling? How was that session for you?
Good. Super nice. I always feel like I was confident that we could show the entire walk through the entire template, and I just did the half of it. Always the time catches up, but still, yeah, I think it was nice.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll be back. Maybe we do a part 2 of this to talk about the rest of the template. Maybe we jump into some other topics. I'm sure we'll do both. Alex, any final words to everybody watching?
Just thank you for being here. I'm just
Great.
excited, for just showing whatever we can do to help people to start coding. It just excites me. It's nice to
Yes.
see growing JS community inside Webflow. So I'm really happy for this. Thank you, and for the one
Me
for
too.
everyone who stick until the end of the stream after the entire lecture that I did. Thank you for staying with us. It's really nice to see already still 50 people here with us. Super nice.
Mm-hmm. And if you were lost, Penny says she was a little bit lost. That's okay. I'm lost. I was lost during this. No problem. Try it again. Watch it over again. Follow the steps again. It may take you a few tries. And the beginning part of learning this is the most difficult. Once you get over these milestones, it gets easier and easier to get to that next step. At the beginning, I think it has an exponential curve for learning. So be patient, stick with it. Maybe it will take a year for you to learn, 2 years to learn, but this is an incredibly valuable skill in this industry. So stick with it. Thanks, Penny. Okay. I think that's it. First build day. Done. Success.
Nice.
I love it. So we'll be back on Tuesday, Thursday, our normal time. Tuesday is Finsweet Day. Thursday is Community Day. Both of those are 12 Eastern. And Build Day is going to be every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, same time. So we'll see you next Friday. We'll see you next Tuesday and Thursday. We'll see you everywhere. Thank you so much and
Yeah.
have a great day.
Bye.